They laughed, they mocked, they shoved him into lockers as if his existence was a joke. To them, he was just the black boy in class, someone they could humiliate daily without consequence. What they didn't know was that every bruise, every insult, every moment of silence was building something inside him. He wasn't weak. He wasn't fragile. He had been training quietly, in the shadows, for a fight none of them saw coming. And when the day arrived, the tables would turn in a way they never imagined. But the question is, would justice be enough to heal the pain they caused? Watch until the end. Wait a second. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this. His name was Jordan, a quiet 17-year-old who carried himself with a calmness that many mistook for weakness. At school, he was often the target of bullying. The color of his skin made him different in a community where diversity wasn't embraced, but mocked. Every day, he endured sneers in the hallways, whispers in classrooms, and smirks that carried more venom than words ever could. But outside of school, Jordan's life was very different. His father, a former amateur boxer, had been teaching him discipline, strength, and control since he was a child. Their evenings were spent in the garage, transformed into a training space with a punching bag, gloves, and echoes of encouragement. To Jordan, boxing wasn't about violence. It was about survival, resilience, and proving to himself that he was more than what they saw. Still, he never bragged, never showed off his skills. He kept his training a secret even as the bullies grew crueler. Little did they know, the boy they tormented was far stronger than he appeared. The bullying started small, books knocked from his hands, cruel nicknames whispered in the cafeteria. But soon it escalated. One afternoon, as Jordan walked across the courtyard, a group of boys cornered him. They laughed as they threw his backpack into the mud, daring him to fight back. He didn't. He picked it up, wiped the dirt, and walked away. To them, his silence was proof of weakness, but what they didn't see was the fire burning inside him. Every evening, Jordan's fists slammed against the punching bag, his father's voice reminding him, "Power is nothing without control. Patience wins battles." Those words became his shield against their cruelty, yet the bullying grew relentless. They shoved him into walls, whispered racial slurs that cut deeper than fists ever could. Teachers looked away, students laughed nervously, and Jordan carried the weight alone. By the time he turned 17, the bullies had only grown bolder. They treated him as entertainment, testing how far they could push before he broke. One Friday afternoon, they decided humiliating him in front of the entire school would be their grand show. They followed him to the gym after classes, circling him like predators. His heart pounded, but his training echoed in his mind. He knew this moment would come. But the question was, should he finally reveal his strength? The leader of the group shoved Jordan hard, his voice dripping with cruelty. "What's the matter, too scared to fight?" Laughter erupted around them, the sound sharp and cold. Jordan took a deep breath, steadying himself. Years of punches, drills, and discipline flowed through his veins. When the bully swung his fist, Jordan moved like lightning. He dodged, his body controlled, precise. His counterpunch landed clean, not reckless, not wild, but calculated. Shock rippled through the crowd as the bully staggered back, clutching his face. The others froze, unsure whether to laugh or run. Jordan stood tall, his fists steady but not raised in anger. He wasn't fighting to destroy. He was fighting to defend his dignity. In that silent moment, the power dynamic shifted. The boy they thought was weak had become unstoppable. The bullies, once fearless, now stared at him with fear of their own. Word spread quickly. Jordan, the quiet 17-year-old, had stood up to his bullies. But what truly stunned everyone wasn't his punch. It was his restraint. He hadn't lashed out in anger. He hadn't let hate control him. Instead, he showed the strength of someone who knew violence wasn't the answer, but dignity was. The bullies never saw him the same way again. Their laughter vanished, replaced by silence whenever he walked past. Teachers, who had once been blind to his suffering, began to notice. But for Jordan, the true victory wasn't the fear in their eyes. It was the realization that he had finally taken back control of his story. His boxing gloves remained in the garage, but the lesson followed him everywhere. Resilience is power, and silence is not weakness. The world often underestimates those it tries to break. The real question is, how many more must suffer before we learn? Take care.